What is up? Welcome to Nerd Level Rising, where we talk about all the nerdy stuff that we love. And today I have an extremely late video that I'm going to do. And this is late because I'm late to joining BookTube, right? This is my first real video, and I kind of missed the initial wave of the timing of doing this video right around the middle of the year. It seemed like most people were doing it like the beginning of July. But hey, I just didn't have a channel until now. So we're going to do it right now, because it sounds like a lot of fun, and I get to talk about some stuff that I've been reading all year and what I'm excited to read for the rest of the year. And I think that will give you guys, sort of an idea of some of the stuff that I'm really into at the moment, and maybe a couple things I'm not as into, with a couple of the prompts here on this mid-year Freakout tag. So let's jump into it. Number one, the best book you've read so far this year. I debated this mightily. This is so difficult between two books in the exact same series, right? Books 2 and 3 in the same series were both absolutely incredible, mind-blowing, left me speechless for a while type of, 11 out of 10 star kind of reads. And even when putting the stack together, I have debated, but I think here last minute at the buzzer, we are going to go with this one, Demon in White by Christopher Rocchio. Like many people, the Sun Eater is a journey that I'm taking this year after the series has really swelled in popularity here recently, and I'm shamelessly jumping on the bandwagon. I read Empire of Silence earlier this year in like January or February. I read Howling Dark, I think it was maybe April or something like that. Because I really, really liked Empire of Silence, and I really wanted more, but it wasn't my favorite thing ever, right? And then Howling Dark, dude, I'll talk about that more here in a second. But wow, that just blew me away, and I couldn't wait for more. But then I had a bunch of travel right after that, like at the end of April and through May, and then there was so much going on. So in June, I was like, okay, I gotta get back. I gotta see what's going on. And somehow this was even better than Howling Dark. And I think I do prefer the ending of Howling Dark over the ending of this. But as a whole, as an entire book experience, I have to go with this, because Howling Dark does have, there's some pacing in the middle that it just slowed down a lot, and I think a tiny little tweak could have pushed that one up over the edge over Demon in White. But man, this book is just almost flawless. It's so good. Just all of the political intrigue that's now happening, all of the maneuvering, the fantasy elements are so strong in this book, with the triumph and with all the stuff that's going on in the court, and how Hadrian is interacting with the emperor and the emperor's daughter, and just all of these things, right? All of these things, so good. And then all the sci-fi stuff is amazing, right? The battle with the White Hand, the just absolute madness that is going on in the mountains. That's all I'll say. And all the things, obviously, at the end with that final battle. What more can I say, right? So much has been said about this book already. It's all true. It's all amazing, incredible, mind-blowing. If you're not reading The Sun Eater, you gotta read The Sun Eater, please. So that is the best book I have read so far this year. But prompt number 2, what is the best sequel that you have read? And for that, I will go with Howling Dark, right? And the reason for that, over saying Demon in White, is because this exceeded my expectations so strongly. I really liked Empire of Silence. This became one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life, guys. Like this was crazy, and the ending especially was so good. But just the tone, the feeling of dread and just horror throughout this entire book, with just how different stuff is, right? With the extrasolarians and with all of the people who have lived their entire existence out in outer space, right? They're not human. They're not machines. They're this weird hybrid with other alien thing that they're not Xenobites either, right? Like they were human at one time, now they're somewhere in the middle. It's so strange and alien and weird. And then we start bringing in, you know, some of these like cybernetic components, and there's a lot going on with this that just feels so creepy and ominous, and like there's just this insidious sense of dread that permeates this entire book, and it's incredible. The tone, just incredible. And then the ending, dude, like everything with this fella here on the cover, awesome, right? Awesome. But the ending, I just cannot say enough. I'm not going to say anything about the ending because I don't want to spoil anything, obviously. But at the same time, it left me speechless, but also like without enough words to describe what happened and how much it caught me off guard and how interested I was in picking up book 3 as fast as humanly possible, and how frustrated I was that I couldn't pick it up right away because I just couldn't lug this huge thing around to travel. So Howling Dark, best sequel that I have read so far this year. So good. A new release that I would like to read but have not yet. I don't have this as a physical copy yet, so I'll put an image of it up here somewhere. But The Tainted Cup. I want to read The Tainted Cup primarily because I'm a huge fan of John Minton over at Talking Story, and his video talking about that book, and multiple videos he's mentioned it, and just gushing about how incredible this book was. And that's, you know, not very many people can sell a book like John can, right? And that's just gotten me so excited to read it. And you know, I was looking up when the sequel is supposed to come out. I believe it has been pushed back to April now. It was originally scheduled for February. Got pushed back a little bit, so I have more time to read it. I definitely will try to. I would love to read it before the year's out, but bare minimum, I'll read it before book 2 comes out. But very, very excited for that one. My most anticipated release for the back half of 2024. Come on, guys, right? Like if you can see the books around me, right? Like Wind and Truth, obviously, right? Like Stormlight Archive means the absolute world to me. It's if I have to pick a favorite series of all time, it's probably the Stormlight Archive. I'll make that video at some point, but that series is just like so many other people, right? It has changed me as a person, and it means so much to me. And not just getting a new Stormlight book, but having it be the final book in that first arc of Stormlight is, wow, that's gonna be crazy. Everything else in life will be dropped so that I can read that book, right? Also, honorable mention, Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. I am a very big John Gwynne fan. I have not read Bloodsworn yet, and I will circle back to that here later in this video, but Faithful and the Fallen, one of my favorite series ever. He did so many unique things in that series, familiar things, but yet unique at the same time. So good. A Blood and Bone trilogy was also really good. I like Faithful and the Fallen quite a bit more, but A Blood and Bone was still awesome, and I'm so excited to get into the Bloodsworn saga and really just catch up with everybody else in the community who has already read those books and just raves about how amazing they are. And can we talk about this book cover with this giant snake? I mean, come on, crazy. And I don't do snakes. Snakes freak me out, but this is just really cool. Okay, next one. Biggest disappointment of the year so far. I very rarely have a book that is disappointing. Very, very rarely. Because I tend to like most things, right? Like, I think the only series I've ever DNF'd was the Witcher series, which I know some people are going to come at me for probably, but it just wasn't for me. It wasn't bad. It just, the writing style of the series just wasn't for me. But this one was a bit disappointing, and that is book 2 specifically of this Drizzt trilogy, The Paths of Darkness, right? The trilogy is called The Paths of Darkness. Book 2 is called The Spine of the World, and that book was disappointing to me. So what's going on with that? Well, that's like the 12th Drizzt book or something. There's the 3 Dark Elf, 3 Icewind Dale, 4 Legacy of the Drow, so that's 10. Silent Blade's 11, yeah. Book 12 overall in Drizzt, Spine of the World. The first 3 series, I liked. The first 9 books I loved a lot, right? I read Icewind Dale as a little kid, had no idea what was happening, but I thought it was cool. But as an adult, a few years ago, I reread it, and I was like, this is great, right? It's just classic adventure, heroic fantasy, right? It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not doing anything really crazy and super unique, but it's so fun, right? It's just so fun. And Icewind Dale was great, and I went back and read Dark Elf, and that was really great, getting that backstory, and I everything to do with the Drow and Menzo Berenzan and everything was just so cool. I love, and I think that's why Spine of the World has been disappointing. Everything with the Drow have always been my favorite with this world. And then coming into Legacy of the Drow series, that kind of combined the two things, right? It combined what I loved from Dark Elf with what I loved from Icewind Dale, and we got this sort of collision of these two trilogies into this third one that was just amazing. And there's a fourth book tacked on to the end of that third trilogy, right? Or series, sub-series. And that one let me down quite a bit, right? It just wasn't, it felt like a standalone that was tagged on at the end. It wrapped up a couple loose ends that were left over from book 9. I'm blanking on the title of that book at the moment, but it wrapped up a couple loose ends, but there was just some other stuff that I was just like, the big reveal, like I just saw it coming the whole way through. It was very obvious to me, and it just felt really anticlimactic, and there was some pacing stuff in the middle that I was like, I don't care about these characters. I don't care about what's happening right now. It just wasn't for me. So when I came into this next series, I was like, okay, I took some time away. I took like a year away, right, before I came back to this. And I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot, right? And I started with The Silent Blade. There's book 1 in this trilogy here. And it was solid, right? It was solid. It was not the first 9, but it was better than that book 10 that let me down. And I really liked some of the symbolism that was in there. And I liked what was happening in some of the, mental health stuff that was being explored there. And I was like, okay, cool, right? Cool. And then we get into Spine of the World. And it leans more into the mental health stuff, which I really like. But the way that it was resolved felt very surface level to me. And I wish, maybe this is just, because I've read some other things that explore these things at a deeper and maybe more realistic level. And these books are these books are like 300-400 pages long, right? So you just don't have the page count to get as deep with some of these things. And I get that, that's fine. But it just wasn't as satisfying to me. And I think the biggest thing was we were pretty much just with one character from our original fellowship, if you will, and one new character. And I actually really liked the story from this new character, this kind of new side character. And their stories, when they collided towards the end of the book, that was really good. That was really satisfying. But sticking with the one member of our original party the whole time and having it not be Drizzt was just not my favorite choice, right? Like I said, the Drow is my favorite, right? I love everything with that, right? The politics and the just evil that's happening between the different houses, and all that stuff that's happening with the Drow. I love it. Everything with Lolth and everything with their religion and their gender roles and everything. It's so interesting. And that just wasn't in here at all, right? Drizzt wasn't even in it, right? So I'm hoping that book 3 brings me back around. I'm not sure when I will read this. I'll probably read it by the end of the year just because I want to finish up this omnibus. But yeah, that definitely was disappointing for me. Definitely was disappointing. Okay, next one. Biggest surprise of the year so far. So this one, and let me kind of I have this on digital. I'm not a big Kindle reader, but I do occasionally, right? I'm coming around to it a bit. So this one, I don't know if you can even see this on the camera. If not, I will just put a picture up here instead. Unbound by Michael R. Miller. That was my biggest surprise of the year, in a very positive way, because I read Ascendant earlier this year. It was in January. I finished getting current on The Bound and the Broken by Ryan Cahill, and I absolutely have adored that series. I love it so much. That was my first exposure to self-published fantasy, and it was fantastic. And as soon as it was done, I was like, okay, I know a couple of things. I know that I want to try more self-published fantasy, and I need more dragons, right? That's what I know. But I also I want to read other things, and typically what I do is I like to read in the morning, right? I like to ease into my day with a cup of coffee and a book, right? And there I have a very large attention span. Then I also have a lighter, easier, shorter read, usually just for 10, 15 minutes before I fall asleep at night, right? Just to kind of wind down and relax. And Ascendant was that for me, right? I chose that book specifically for that reason, because I knew that it was kind of YA-ish, which I don't read very much YA at all, but I was like, yeah, I think that could be a good fit. It gives me the dragons that I want. It lets me check out another self-published author, and it's not something that's going to be just too much for me to handle mentally right before I go to bed. So and it was good, right? I liked it. There was things about it I didn't like so much. Some of the progression fantasy elements, that's my first time checking out anything with progression elements in it, and I'm on the fence about it still. I'm not fully on board, but I'm also not jumping ship yet. I want more exposure before I make a decision there. But it wasn't my favorite. Some of the YA aspects of it definitely were not my favorite. It's just not really my thing. I like adult epic fantasy and sci-fi, right? But it was still solid, and I was interested enough to check out book 2. So I checked out Unbound, and it's better in every way for me personally as a reader and what I like. It's more mature. The tone is more mature. There's more things happening. There's more politics going on. There's more regions and different peoples and cultures to keep track of. There's more dragons, different things happening, more interactions between these different characters. We're getting deeper into the villains, right? And how they might not be just clear-cut bad guys, right? There's some depth there. We're getting some more depth to our heroes, right? Holt and Ash and Talia and all of these people. More depth to Rake. Rake is really interesting to me, and I really really liked where it went, and the progression elements here sat better with me. Maybe I'm just getting used to it, but I liked it better here, and I think. My only complaint right now, still with this series, is I'm not a huge fan of how the dragons and their riders interact with each other. It almost feels kind of more like talking to a pet rather than like a dragon. You know what I mean? Like I'm just so used to the dragons in fantasy that I have seen. Right, are Smaug, from The Hobbit, the Bound and the Broken, those dragons. Song of Ice and Fire, right? Things like that. That's fierce, epic, legendary, terrifying creatures, right? And some of these, like Holt talks to Ash like he's like a puppy, which baby dragon, right? I get it, but I don't know. Even as Ash has grown up, it still has kind of stayed like that, and it still just feels so weird to me that Ash will refer to Holt as boy. He'll just call him boy. And I don't like that. I'll just be honest. That's not my personal taste. But the rest of it I really like, and I definitely will continue the series. And it's now getting complex enough that I don't think this is a bedtime read for me anymore, right? I need to have my mental faculties available to keep track of everything that's going on. So book 3, Defiant, I will get to, I think probably within the next few months. I'll probably jump into it and check that out. The books keep getting longer. What I hear is that they keep getting more mature, sort of grow up with the readership as you go, which is part of what I liked about Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter did that. So we'll see. I'm definitely interested, and that was a very pleasant surprise for the year. Next, my favorite new author. I don't think this is going to be shocking, right? And this is where we might start to kind of see a trend. This is Christopher Ruocchio, right? I've read Empire of Silence, Howling Dark, Demon in White. I'm currently, as of this morning, I got a third of the way through Kingdoms of Death. I have read the first short story collection. I read The Lesser Devil. I read Queen Amid Ashes. So I'm doing everything in the author's recommended chronological order, and it's just all been incredible. The novels are my favorite by far. I really like the novellas, the short stories. They're my favorite short stories I've ever read. I'm not a short story person in general, but I do like them. But the novels are just unbelievable. I said enough about these already. Kingdoms of Death is just continuing just how great the series is, and I cannot describe the amazement that I have for Ruocchio. This is, as his first published work, being so young, what he's able to accomplish, not just with the characterization and the really complex world building and plotting and everything that's going on with that, and how he's bringing in these science fiction elements that have a lot of baggage, right? Like there's certain, I don't want to spoil anything, but like there are certain sci-fi things that once you open Pandora's box, there's some stuff you got to deal with, right? And so far, at least, he is dealing with them incredibly well. And it's so impressive, and it's just so amazing. And his prose is just gorgeous. It's some of my favorite prose that I've ever read. I think the most beautiful prose that I've read is probably Stephen Erickson in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is probably one step just below that in terms of just the poeticness that's there, like just maybe a half step below it, but it's just the tiniest little bit more accessible than Erickson's prose is. So you can get through the book faster, right? You can, you're not looking up words in the dictionary quite as often, although you do certainly look them up occasionally. But he's just such an incredible writer. Seems like a really good dude, right? From all the interviews that I've seen and the way that he interacts with his fans, and his YouTube channel is awesome, constantly keeping us updated on what's going on. And it's just amazing. So massive Rockio fan. New fictional crush. And I really don't have crushes from books, like, ever, right? Like, it's very, very rare. And even calling this one a crush is a bit of a stretch, but it's the closest thing I have. And that is Dr. Volka Ondera from the Sun Eater series. Again, can you see a theme? Volka is just awesome. She's just a badass, just doing all the cool stuff. Such an interesting character. There's so much depth. There's so much things going on with, like, her ability as a intellectual, as a researcher, as a scientist, when she's first introduced, and how she has maybe a bit of help with that, right? And a bit of help with her memory and with her ability to sift through so much information, remember it, and come to conclusions and all those sorts of things. And maybe even do some other stuff, right? Some cool sci-fi abilities there, and how that contrast with how people from other planets, our other characters, how they see her, how they interact with her, and how she has to be very careful and very secretive, but also has a leg up in some aspects, and just how that's sort of leveraged throughout the series is really, really cool. Her having some history that we didn't see it, right? It happened, off the page before we're introduced to her, but some history being in action in a battle, and how that sort of is portrayed as we go, and how she's different from these really grizzled soldiers, but she does have some abilities, right? And she's very brave, and she's very proactive. And I think what I like the most about her is she just says what she means, right? She doesn't hide anything. She just says it like it is. She's very blunt, and I just think that's cool, right? And she'll deal with the consequences later. She takes care of herself. Then as she starts to care for other people, she'll take care of them as well. But at the start, her nature is very solitary and very just like, this is who I am. Either you like it or you don't, and I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. And I just think that's awesome. So Volka is just the coolest. I love everything that's happening. I hate one thing that happened to her, just because I like her so much. But I do think it's a very interesting plot thing that's going on. Just everything with her culture, with it, just she's so interesting. So Volka is awesome. Favorite character, Hadrian Marlowe, right? So another more love for the Sun Eater. I'm not just going to ramble about this too much longer, but Hadrian is so interesting. He's so cool. We had that great coming of age and that great story of hubris in Empire of Silence, and then as the series has progressed, just seeing everything that he's gone through, how he's reacted, how he makes mistakes. He's not just always doing the right thing, even though a lot of times he thinks he does. He makes mistakes, he falls on his face, he has to get back up and figure it out. He has to rely on his friends, and he has to summon up some power within him sometimes to get things done, and it's not always physical, right? A lot of it is mental and mind games, and how he talks to people, and how he just through conversation can do these amazing things that then inevitably usually fall apart, right? And that's how the series keeps going. But he's just so interesting. He's so melodramatic. He's so emo, and it's cool to see a character like that. And seeing how he interacts with Volka is very interesting, right? Very, very different in their personalities there. So he's just been such a pleasure to follow through this series, and seeing, page 1 of book 1, knowing where it's going to eventually go, and watching everything unfold with that just sense of dread, just kind of chilling there in the background. It's cool, man. So Hadrian Marlowe, best new character for me. Next up, the book that made me cry, and I don't have physical copies of this, and this wasn't even really a book. I don't read a ton of manga, but when I do, I tend to really like it. And I've been slowly reading through One Piece. And man, the end of the Arabasta arc just really got me. It started off, it was good. I liked the East Blue stuff. I liked the stuff, everything that's kind of led up to Arabasta. I liked it. I didn't love it. Arabasta, I really, really, really liked. And by the end, I was like, okay, I'm in, right? I'm bought in for the rest of the series, which is hilarious, like 200 and whatever chapters into the manga, to finally feel like I'm bought into the series. But it is so good. And the ending was very satisfying. And just that character moment at the end that I'm not going to say anything else about. There was just a moment that made me tear up, and it was really nice. And it was just such a satisfying ending to that arc. And I'm really excited. I haven't gotten back to One Piece yet since then. It's been a couple months ago. So I do want to get back into the Sky Island saga here next, because I hear great things about Skypiea, and I'm excited to continue that journey. The book that made me happy, that would have to be, and this may seem like an odd choice, Orb Scepter Throne by Ian C. Esselmont. And I almost went with Tress of the Emerald Sea for this, because that made me very happy. I loved Tress. It was so fun. It was such just a nice light adventure, so fast-paced, so great. But I have to go with this one because the previous books in this series, the novels of Malazan Empire by Ian Esselmont, have not been my favorite. I enjoy them. I definitely like them. I would more than enjoy them. I like them a lot. But they're not the Book of the Fallen for me. Erickson's books were miles ahead in terms of my personal enjoyment and my connection to the characters and what's happening and all that kind of stuff. But Orb Scepter Throne was so good. I loved this book, and I think it's because it brought back Darujhistan. Darujhistan has always been my favorite setting in the Malazan world, and bringing back those characters and that setting and just seeing the city of Blue Fire, not just depicted on the front of this book, which is awesome. Speaking of which, I can't wait to get those Broken Binding editions to get even more depictions of Darujhistan. But this was just so fun to be back in that city. We got great backstory for the Moranth and for the Segula, and there was just a lot of world building that happened in there. Some really interesting things going on in the city itself. This more directly related to the plot that I don't want to get into for spoilers, but this just made me so happy and so satisfied to get to scratch that itch again, right? So I'm almost done. I only have one more book left in this series, a sale that I'm planning to do in September. So I'm looking forward to that. Next, the most beautiful book I bought this year, or have received this year, is not here yet. It's not arrived in the mail. I have a problem now. So I have never really bought special edition books like ever, right? I have a special edition of Dune that was like $20 on Amazon. I have a special edition of The Lord of the Rings that I got on a Black Friday sale for like $25 or something. I just don't spend a ton of, books are expensive enough, right? They add up enough. I don't spend money on special editions. I did finally break and backed the Kickstarter for The Words of Radiance leatherbound from Brandon Sanderson, and I may have also added on the Way of Kings leatherbound because it's signed. So there goes a whole bunch of money. There goes my whole I don't spend money on special editions thing, because those books are just so gorgeous. And I told myself I'll get the leatherbounds for Stormlight because that series means so much to me, and because they're going to be a few years apart, so I can justify it more easily. But I also kind of feel like once those leatherbounds show up, I'm going to be like, all right, I want the whole set now. So we'll see what happens with that, to be determined. But those are probably the most beautiful. I mentioned the Broken Binding editions. I have been fortunate enough here in the last couple months to be added into the subscription service for the Broken Binding, and I'm so excited for that. The Green Bone books are going to be showing up here. I think Jade City is supposed to show up maybe tomorrow. So we'll start getting a bunch from there. I have definitely pre-ordered the Malazan set for books 1 through 3, and we'll get those. I plan on ordering the Sun Eater set, of course. I ordered the Dandelion Dynasty set because those midnight editions are just so... I love purple on books, and I just couldn't help myself. I can't wait to get the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. That Dragonbone chair cover it's one of the coolest covers I've ever seen in my life. There's a lot of great stuff coming, but I don't have anything in hand yet. And finally, what book do I need to read by the end of the year? There's a lot, obviously. There's a lot. But if I have to pick something, it's got to be Bloodsworn to get ready for Fury of the Gods. I am not doing a Stormlight reread like so many other people are, just because I am not the fastest reader out there, and each Stormlight book will take me like 3 or 4 weeks to get through each, right? So I just want to read other things also, right? So I will be relying on podcasts and YouTube videos and articles to get me caught back up on all the details on that stuff for anything I might have forgotten to refresh my memory before Wind and Truth. But Bloodsworn, I have not read any of these books yet. These are some of the coolest covers that are out there, especially this one, because, I mean, come on, dragons are just always amazing. And I got to get to those because I want to be right there alongside everybody else reading Fury of the Gods on day one. All right, that's everything that I have, right? There's my mid-year Freakout tag that is incredibly late, but hopefully this has been, you know, an interesting look into what I've been reading so far this year. It's been a lot of Sun Eater, and with a sprinkling of a handful of other things that have all been really fun. And it's been a great reading year so far. Some great things left for this last third of the year or so that I just can't wait for. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you took a second to give it a thumbs up, like the video. That actually does help the videos quite a bit, so I am told. The YouTube gods seem to like that. Please consider subscribing if you are interested in this and you want to hear more from what I'm doing here and have more of these conversations. And the most important thing, though, what I would like the most, please leave a comment down below and just talk to me. Like, what have you read this year? What have you liked the most? If you want to answer these questions, like, that'd be cool. I'd love to see how you would answer some of these things. But I just want to talk about all this cool stuff, right? There's so many great stories, great sci-fi, great fantasy, some great manga, just everything, right? All of it is so exciting to me. I love it so much, and I want to talk to you guys about what you love as well. So this has been the first official video for this YouTube channel for Nerd Level Rising. So thank you so much for watching. This is a milestone moment for me. I'm already having a great time. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.